So there are many things in the industry, like and unfortunately, though many of the agencies have a very robust skill training, but a lot of inputs doesn't come from the industry. CSI alone cannot change the world.
Yeah.
Tool is always limited. We can, but definitely we can create good models which government can replicate.
Today we have with us Mr. Partha, who heads CSR at AkzoNobel. With a rich experience of over 15 plus years in the CSR industry, Mr. Partha has worked with different organizations to improve the lives of many across India. His passion towards development and human excellence has led him to the most difficult geographies of India, all in the pursuit of making a difference. Under his leadership, AkzoNobel has contributed immensely to the skilling landscape in India. Mr. Partha, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to especially thank NGO Box, Yamini, and all the team, Bhumik, and everybody for giving me this opportunity to share my limited experience.
Thank you, sir. So, to begin with, we would just like to talk a little bit about your background, where you
Right.
come from, where you decided to pursue a career in the social sector, and what led you to AkzoNobel.
So, it started quite long back in 1999. So, when I did my class 12th, and so basically my sister was reading in Shantiniketan, and that is how I came to know there's a course called social work. And I loved interacting with people, getting to know more of people. So I didn't want a typical course where I need to sit with the computer, things like that. So I always felt that it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that started in 1999 when I started doing my graduation in social work. So first I completed it in BSW in 2002, and then I thought, no, let me see the bigger world, the national scenario, and that is how I shifted to came to and decided to come to Delhi University. So I pursued my master's in social work from Delhi University. My first job was an NGO in Uttarakhand called Pragya. So basically, I got an opportunity to work with communities, in high altitude. So every place has its own challenges. So the weather conditions, the terrain was very difficult. So it was quite a good opportunity for me to work with them. And in fact, in 2006, I got my first opportunity to work in CSR, that's the GMR Foundation. So the GMR group had just moved in with the Delhi airport. So for a couple of years, I was working there, looking after the CSR projects of Delhi airport, the hydropower projects, thermal power projects. 2008, I got another opportunity to work with Kane India, so being an oil and gas company. So from 2008 to 2015, I was in Kane India for almost 7 years. So I work with livelihood issues, I work with water, sanitation, and many different aspects. And 2015, I got opportunity to lead CSR in AkzoNobel. So I thought it's a good opportunity for me, to start CSR from the scratch, learn from my mistakes, gain some experience. So 2015, I joined AkzoNobel as a CSR lead, and it's been now almost 5 years that I'm doing it now.
That's wonderful to hear, sir.
Yeah.
Talking about your time at AkzoNobel, how is AkzoNobel contributing to improving livelihoods through their CSR initiatives?
Right. So in fact, when we thought of starting CSR, and to be very honest, it was only after the coming of the Companies Act that AkzoNobel thought, let us have a serious look at the portfolio, and let's do some good strategy, prepare some good strategy in work to work with, and that is how I came into AkzoNobel. So the first thing we did is that we to find out what are our strengths, what means we can contribute to society.
Yeah.
So that was very important for us, and we also did a mapping of the stakeholders we have. So we found a good match in initiating a skill training in painting. First of all, we had a lot of knowledge of paints, like AkzoNobel being a 400-year-old company, founded by Sir Alfred Nobel, a very rich heritage in paints. So that was definitely one area where we had very good knowledge, paints. The second area was, the important stakeholder was painters, who are largely neglected. Being a typical, he is typically seen as a daily wage laborer. So there is it's not a dignified livelihood as such. People don't think you need to have skills to be a painter. So quite a neglected profession. So we thought, let us do something about it. Try to make it more professional. There's a large opportunity of skilling these people, and as India is changing very fast, with the economic development. So, obviously the consumption of paints and the amount of money people are spending in paints have been enormous now. So definitely there is a good demand, but unfortunately there's no steady manpower supply. There is no steady trainings available for this, both for the fresh skill people, who want to join as a painter, and as well as for the painters who are already working for the past 15, 20 years. So that's how we thought, let us strengthen this portfolio and focus on skill training. So around 4 years back, we started with the skill training, and till now it's the flagship project of us where we spend almost 50% of the budget. So we have two types of skill training. One is for decorative paints, the other one is for vehicle repainting. So with both the trades, we have almost 7 centers all over India where we offer for skill training in decorative paints and vehicle refinish, and we train almost 2,500 youth and painters in a year. So basically again when we started, it was very important to do a in-depth study to understand the scenario, where is the gap and how to address the gap. So the best part of our skill training initiative is that it is completely industry led. So right from the development of the course curriculum to do the assessment to do the placement, so everywhere the complete industry is involved rather than the other way around. So and I think that is where we have achieved the limited success we have till now. Yes.
That's wonderful, sir, that AkzoNobel was able to leverage their industry expertise and kind of involve that within their CSI initiatives.
Right.
So, yeah, that's great to hear. So what are the different partners that AkzoNobel has partnered with? We've heard about different skill training agencies such as TeamLease Skill University, EduBridge, Skillsonics, and others. So what are the different partners that have kind of helped them bring this positive change to the youth of India?
So, when we started this journey, we understood very well that it's very important to have a seasoned partner who understands the skill scenario of India, who have good experience, who have good presence in even rural parts of India, because, particularly in this state of training, painters or the youth that come for the training mostly come from rural parts of India.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have a very efficient partner. So we zeroed down into a few skill training agencies, and so we worked together because typically because painting was not a trade that they have done before. So whether we started with Lebanon, we started with Ireland as a skill. We are currently working with TeamLease University, Skillsonics, so different skill training agencies, and it was very important to have a convergence of their strength and our strength, in order to take it forward. So in terms of capacity building of their staff also, we invested a lot of time, and we gained immensely with their depth of, in terms of student mobilization, in terms of doing the quality monitoring of the programs. So it was, win-win thing for all, and I think, we both benefited from the partnership.
Okay. So now on the subject of partnerships and collaborations, what is AkzoNobel planning for the future, especially when it comes to supporting the government's Skill India mission?
Right. So basically, if you typically see our skill training program is very much aligned to the Skill India mission, whether to develop a new trade or to even empower the youth, in providing skill-based employment, right from getting the industry requirement, because it is very important that the industry recognize this trade. Unless it happens, we don't get much of output. So there is an industry recognition to the trade, and there is a proper mapping of whether where is the skill and where is the need. So we are completely aligned with the Skill India mission. So if you typically see all the objectives of Skill India mission, we are aligned with that. And going forward, we are planning to ramp up the skill training. So we are looking for something like 3,500 youth per year. The first few years, we have done some pilot projects. We committed some mistakes. We learned from it, and now we are looking to ramp it up. So ramp it up in terms of the new geographies also, as well as skilling more number of youth. Yes.
All right. I think that's the way forward. Public and private partnerships are definitely the way forward when it comes to the skilling industry.
Right.
Now, just bringing focus to the current health crisis that we are in, which has impacted every industry, business, foundation that we can think of.
Right.
What are some of the challenges that you think personally the COVID pandemic has brought for the skilling initiatives in the country, and how must we adapt to these challenges?
Right. I think it's been a huge challenge. To be very honest, since March, we are not able to start any of our skill training centers.
Yeah.
And though a lot of things, skill trainings are currently happening online, but there are few trades where 80% of the work is done practical. Like, so we are talking about painting where people are either illiterate or studied up to class 3 or 4. So
Yeah.
it will be difficult for them to expect to shift to online. And even if we do some basic things, I don't think we can do it completely online.
Hmm.
So it's a big challenge, first of all. We again see it as an opportunity because I personally visited many of the sites where still again painting job have resumed. So there's a huge demand of painters. Unfortunately, almost 80% of the painters have now gone back to their hometown, and only 20 to 30% have come back. So in terms of skilled manpower, there suddenly I see there's a huge demand. More and more employers are contacting us, to provide us a skilled manpower. And this is going to be in the long term also, because I estimate that almost 15 to 20% of painters are not going to come back in the next 1 year also, right? So in terms of demand, the demand has suddenly gone high. There's a lot of market, placement and job opportunity market,
Yeah.
right? What we're planning to do is that we are keeping all the groundwork ready. We are in process of discussing with the youth and everything. So the moment the government gives clearance to resume the trainings, so we will immediately start it. So we are doing a more scanning of the job market. The things we are doing is that we are in touch with the Sector Skill Council, the Paint and Coating, as well as the Automotive Sector Skill Council, to see what they have been doing, and we are doing a lot of skill mapping currently. So as soon we get approval from the government, we'll all go all guns for it.
Can we discuss a little bit more about the skill mapping that you spoke about? How is that coming into execution?
So basically in terms of skill mapping, there is a lot of gap of the skills generally we provide to the students and the skill that is required in the industry.
Okay.
Right. So there are many things in the industry, like and unfortunately, though many of the agencies have a very robust skill training, but a lot of inputs doesn't come from the industry. Right. Even if initially one couple of years ago, we also experienced that there is somewhere misconnect with the industry. So what we have done is that we are doing extensive meetings and surveys with the employers, both in terms of decorative paints, the primary paint contractors, in terms of vehicle repainting, the automobile body shops, and try to find out what type of skill exactly they need.
I think that's a great initiative with the skill mapping, because you're really able to understand where the need is and supply that need, especially in a time like this.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of initiatives can learn from AkzoNobel's actions.
Right.
So now talking about this, dichotomy between education and skilling, being an organization that has dipped toes in both of these ponds.
Right.
You believe that the two are synergistic, and how?
Absolutely. So because in the Western countries, if you see, you study up to class 7th and 8th, and then then at that point of the career, they decide which field they would like to go to. Right. And if you see typically a country like Japan or Germany, where 70 to 80% of the students go for vocational skill training, in India it's only 4 or 5%. Right. So there are many reasons for that. One reason is that lack of information. Number two is that even the psychology of ours. We always consider that doing a vocational skill training is a typical blue collar job, right? Why I would like to go for it. So in India, what happens? One does a graduation and post graduation, and then thinks what I will do in my career. Right? It's not the other way around. So so that is exactly the change we are trying to bring in. So what we do is that when we do our education projects, a very important component of the education project is career counseling.
Okay.
Right. So right from the class 7th and 8th, and I think in India, government is also putting a lot of initiatives, initiating skill training in high school itself. I think that is the way to go forward. So apart from providing a formal education, we do executive counseling that if you want to if you want to go for career, there are many types of career available, and not it's a fact that not everybody will pass in the exams. There will be always some percentage of students who are weak in studies, or due to financial conditions they have to drop out after high school. Right? Not everybody will pursue graduation. Right? So they should know exactly that it's not that we want them to become a agricultural laborer or a daily wage laborer.
Yeah.
There are many vocational skill trainings that are available, and if they pursue them early in their career, so they can earn really good amount of money, which normally a laborer won't never be able to earn. So I think skill training should be embedded with the school education. I think right after the once starts the high school, and that is exactly we are doing. Apart from formal education, we are encouraging people to go for skill training. We do organize career counseling programs, and we are getting a lot of students, and from the teachers also. Because they are in touch with a lot of students who are completing high school education and not able to find employment, or for some reason dropping out of school. They are also counseling them to join our skill training program. So I think both are the completely integrated educational skill development, and should start absolutely from the high school. And that is why we are focusing on that only.
I think that's very important, because often kids fall through the cracks after school. Girls get married, and all these social issues come into the picture. So just to have that knowledge from an early start is definitely very helpful. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
So now, just talking about your experience within the CSR sector, what can be CSR's role in promoting social change when it comes to skill training, or taking these out of the box initiatives rather than following the conventional and traditional roles that we have in the industry?
Right. If you typically tell me what is the CSR role, I always believe that CSR should lead the way in doing out of box things, right? So CSR alone cannot change the world. It is always limited. But definitely we can create good models which government can replicate. I think that is the thing even government wants to do us. Government just doesn't want donations or charities. They want us to create good robust models which government can follow. So I think CSR can play a big role in offering out of box solution, also to bring us social change. I will give you a couple of examples, what we are doing regarding that. Like, as I said, we are into skill training, especially in painting. So if you typically find the employment scenario in India, you will never find a girl painter, or women who are involved in painting. So it's completely 100% male dominated field.
Yeah.
And because if you ask me the reason, that because it's hazardous, it's considered as hazardous. The health issues is there, and it's also a matter people perceive that the girl won't have the strength to do so much of work throughout the day. And even the employers have hesitations to take girls, right? Because they say then I have to think about all sorts of things like her safety, about her hygiene factors. So there are many factors roll into play. So this is the scenario we wanted to make a change. So around 3 years back, we offered the first program where we enrolled girl students for into decorative paints.
Okay.
It was quite a tough journey for us because as I said, there are many myths involved, not only among the parents of the girls, because they think my girl, then safety issues with her when she will come back home. It's a completely male dominated thing. How would we do? So again, we face a lot of challenges both with the parents as well as with the employers. So in the past 3 years, the good part is that we created around 70 painters, and they are the first women painters group in NCR, which we are trying to promote, vigorously among the customers. All girls painters group. The good part is that we are getting very good response for that. They are getting a lot of opportunities. They have become independent contractors now, and they are taking the work themselves. So the good part is that we have brought in the change, but I would still say it's not a thing done. It will take a lot more time because they have to change the mind psychology of both the customers as well as the employers as well as the parents. But definitely we have fixed at the beginning, and I see that there's a lot of more girls are coming up, seeing the the case studies or success stories, hearing from the stories of the girls. So definitely we have started a change, and I'm sure it will continue to do so. Another example we are doing is that we are working with Hyderabad District Prison in offering skill training in paints to the prison inmates.
Okay.
In India, typically if you see, it's once a person if lands upon a jail, whether he's innocent or not innocent, and even he just serves that under trial period, the initial period, it's very difficult to get a job outside, right? Even a literate person struggles to get a job because people doesn't see once you have a mark in that career saying that you have served a jail sentence, whether it's for 5 days or 5 months or 5 years, you will it's very difficult to get a job, especially in the formal sector.
Yeah.
So what forces that people, especially in the lower strata of income, that forces them back to the crime world. So we had this dialogue with Faridabad District Prison, and they were very open to the idea. And for the past 1 year, we have been doing training in Faridabad District Prison, and so far we have trained almost 130 prisoners. And out of them, 30 have come out, they completed the sentence, and now working as a decorative painter. Many of them also have become employers, and they themselves are hiring ex-prison inmates in their team. So I think again a wonderful example that how vocational skill training can solve this problem and offer a new opportunity of rehabilitation in for prison inmates.
Yeah, I think these are absolutely commendable initiatives. I mean,
Right.
it takes one to drive change, and
Absolutely.
certain girl, the 70 painters and the 130 inmates, those are going to be the ones who's really going to inspire the next generation to kind of reach higher heights for themselves.
Right.
So
Right.
that's absolutely great to hear. This brings us to the end of our interview. Thank you
Right.
so much for being a part of this. It was an absolute delight to have you, be a part of our India Skill Series, and it's great to see Akzo Nobel making such a huge difference in the lives of so many vulnerable populations. And I really hope we had the chance to reconnect again.
Thank you so much. And once more, thanks to CSR Box. I have been associated with them almost for like 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And it's always great to interact with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.